Come back. Let's continue our discussion on indexing using the iloc method. Let's look at our data frame 1 object. So we have 6 rows by 4 columns. So far we saw indexing by passing index as an integer. We can also pass an integer list. Let's see an example of that. So we have our data frame 1 that iloc, and we can pass a list of integers. Let me show you that. Let's say we want to grab rows at index 1, 2, and 4. So that will be, this is index 0, index 1, index 2, and index 4. So 12, 14, and 18. I can pass that as an integer list, as a list containing integers. So rows 1, 2, and 4. And we can do the same thing for our columns. Let's say we want to grab columns at index 0, 1, and 3. So we can simply say 0, 1, and 3. So this will grab columns at index 0, index 1, and index 3. So 0, 2, and 6. Let's run this. So here we have columns 0, 2, and 6. And for our rows, we have 12, 14, and 18. One thing to make sure while using this technique is that you have your indexes in bounds. Make sure that it's not out of bounds. Otherwise, you'll get an out of bound error. So instead of this, if I say, let me copy this and paste it here. So if I change this to index 4, if you look at the columns, so the columns index 0, 1, 2, 3. So I only have up to index 3. I don't have index 4 in my column. So if I run the cell, I'll get an error. So we get an out of bounds error. So make sure you don't get that error. Okay, let's look at some more examples of the iloc method. And if we want to grab everything, we can simply say all the rows and columns. We can simply say colon. That means grab all the rows from beginning to end, comma, colon. For my columns, grab all the columns, beginning to end. That's one method. We could also change this to, let's say, grab all the rows, and then for our columns, grab the columns from index 0 to, let's say, index 2. That means grab the columns at index 0 and 1. So it will grab the first 2 columns and all the rows. Let's run it. So the first 2 columns and all the rows. And if we want to grab a certain row, let's say we want to grab row 12. So the second row and all the column values, how can I do that? So the second row is at index 0, 1, index 1. So we can simply say data frame 1 that iloc at index 1. So that will give us index 1 at rows, the row values for 0, 2, 4, and 6. And similarly, if I want to grab the last row, how can I do it? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So index 5, you can simply say that. And then I got the value. So to grab the last row, I could have also used a negative indexing. I could have also said data frame 1.iloc index -1. That will give me the same result. Let's look at some more examples of the iloc method by using slice indexing. Let's create a series object, and I'll save this in a variable called series. So pd.series, and let's create our series from a list of alphabets. Let's say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Run it, and if we call our series, we have indexes 0 through 6. So we can use the iloc method, series.iloc, and then we can use slice indexing. For instance, we can say index 2 through 5. So that will grab indexes 2, 3, and 4. And what do you think will happen if I say series.iloc and then index, let's say 2 through 9? We know that we only have up to index 6. So what this will do is it will give us all the indexes from 2 through 6, and then ignore everything out of this index 6. So if we run this, we get indexes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And if we do series.iloc index, let's say 7 through 9, we don't get anything. We just get an empty series. So this out of range index slicing is handled very well with pandas. Okay, and the same result is true in data frames also. Let's look at an example of that. Let's create a data frame, and I'll save it in a variable called data frame. So pd.dataframe, and we'll use numpy's random.randn method, and let's create a 6x2 data frame. Let's pass column names. Let's create that from a list containing ABC. So if we call, let's make it a 6x3 data frame. Run it again. Then if we call our data frame object, we have a 6x3 data frame. And here we can say we have our data frame that iloc. We can say grab the first 3 rows. We can say 0 through index 0, 1, and 2, so up to 3, and then grab columns 1 and 2. How can we do that? So column 1 is at index 0, column 2 is at index 1, so grab up to column 2. So basically this means grab rows from index 0 to 3. 3 is not included, so grab rows 0, 1, and 2, and from our columns, grab columns at index 0 and 1. Run this. So we have this. What if we pass out of range index slicing? Let's see that. For instance, if I say data frame that iloc, let's say grab rows 0 to 2, so the first 2 rows, and then for our columns, let's pass an out of range column. So we have 3 columns, that means index 0, 1, and 2. So if we pass, let's say index 3 to 4, so we don't have index 3, we only have up to index 2. So this is an out of range index slicing. So in this case, we'll get an empty data frame, right? So nothing. Since it's an out of bound, it just grabbed the row index 0, 1. So nothing. And if this is also out of bounds, let's say index 7 to 9. If we run it, we get an empty data frame. So this index out of bound is handled very well with pandas. And it's very important to differentiate this out of bound indexing from a single indexer object. So far we are using an index range, right? Index out of bound index range. So we are saying 7 to 9, 3 to 4, 2 to 6, and so on. But if you are using a single indexer, you will get an error. Let me show you what I mean. So if I say data frame that iloc, and then if we pass, let's say, grab rows from index 2 to 3, and then comma, let's say grab column at index 5. So this is a single indexer. We're not saying grab columns 5 to 7. We're not saying grab columns 5 to 9. We're simply saying grab column at index 5. So this is a single indexer. So if we say this, we are going to get an error. If we run this, it says index error. So single positional indexer is out of bounds. So make sure to differentiate that from using an index slice. Okay? Make sure to differentiate between those two while you are using it. So if you run into an error, go back to your code and then check whether you are using an index slice versus a single indexer. And this is also true if you are passing a list of integers. We have seen this before. So if I say data frame that iloc, and then if I'm passing, let's say 6, 7, 8, right? This will throw an error because we don't have rows 7 and 8. You'll get a positional indexers are out of bounds. So be careful while you are using those. It's important to differentiate those. So data frame that iloc, so a list of integers, let's say 2, 3, 4, that's a valid entrance. We get rows at index 2, 3, and 4. But if I have one of the rows as outside my index, so I don't have index 8, so this will throw an error. Great. So this is what I have for this lecture. Just to recap, we saw how we can use indexing by position by using the iloc method. And with the iloc method, we can use several kinds of inputs like a single integer, a list of integers, or a Boolean value. Thank you everyone, and I'll see you at the next lecture.